Hello and welcome to this video webinar on prioritizing time management and scheduling. My name is Taylor Shembri-Much and I will be guiding you through this video. This webinar is one of a three-part series geared toward post-secondary students with attentional concerns. The two other webinars in this series focus on establishing routines and breaking down large goals. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that the content for this presentation has been adapted with permission from a pre-existing intervention group titled More Than Just Making Lists, which is an adult ADHD intervention group. This group was originally created by a registered psychologist named Dr. Michael Zweers in an effort to combat the lack of services available for adults with ADHD. So I'd like to give a big thank you to Dr. Zweers for allowing me to utilize his content and put a post-secondary spin on it. In this video, we will be discussing how to set priorities. We will also discuss time management with a specific focus on ADHD and time, and then we will wrap up by discussing planners and organizers. So, first things first, why prioritize? The main reason prioritizing is important is because there are simply not enough hours in the day to accomplish everything we want. The second reason we prioritize is to avoid ADHD pitfalls. Folks with ADHD or other attentional concerns often find it difficult to balance what is stimulating and what is pressing. In other words, they can hyper-focus on things they find stimulating and interesting. So examples of this can include books, TV, internet, hobbies, or even social activities, right? And because of this hyper-focus, they can often neglect what is pressing or what needs to be done. So these things can include personal care tasks such as exercise and sleep. They can also include household tasks such as cooking and cleaning. And then this can also extend into work and academia with a lack of focus or a tendency towards procrastination. This can become problematic if pressing items become neglected for too long and you fall behind. For example, if you find video games stimulating and interesting, but you find writing assignments to be extremely boring, it can result in prioritizing video games over academics, which leads you to fall behind and be unable to devote the amount of time needed to write a quality paper. ADHD pitfalls regarding prioritization can also become problematic in your relationship with others. For example, if you have a roommate who prioritizes household tasks when you do not, or if you're in a group project with someone who prioritizes getting things done as soon as possible and you do not, these things can put strains on your relationships. In order to set priorities, you need to consider several different things. First, note the urgency of items and their deadlines. For example, you have an exam in a class that you're less interested in next week, but you also have an assignment that you are really interested in doing, but that it's due in 2 weeks, right? It can be very easy to postpone the pressing but boring and non-stimulating exam studying for the more stimulating and interesting project. But you need to pause and consider how much time you have before each task needs to be accomplished. You also need to decide what is important to you. Do you value school and your assignments? Do you value working and starting a career? Do you value time with loved ones? Or do you value other hobbies, interests, and activities? Remember, there is no right answer here, but the purpose of this is to reflect on what is important to you so you can plan your time accordingly. Another thing to consider is what is important to others. We always have others involved in our lives, and it is useful to consider their priorities as well. Maybe you want to consider the priorities of partners, family, friends, classmates, or peers. Perhaps you're considering the priorities of some professors or employers, right? When you're planning your priorities. This is not saying that we should prioritize other people over ourselves, but we should consider the values and priorities of those who are important to us and to whom we have obligations. Which leads us to consider, who are the important people in our lives? Are there some relationships that you prioritize over others? Are some relationships more important and more valuable to you than others? It is also useful to reflect on what your long-term goals and values are. If your long-term goal is to graduate with your degree and start a career in that field, then you need to prioritize the sub-goals that will get you there. This may include graduating, working in your field, volunteering in your field. It could also include connections with mentors and our employers, and many other things. Lastly, it is extremely important to prioritize aspects of self-care. We need to take care of ourselves so that we can continue to stay on track. People who do not prioritize self-care are often prone to fatigue and burnout, which makes it difficult to achieve goals. One way to help with prioritization is to rate items and activities. You can do this in a number of different ways, such as prioritizing them numerically, by order of importance, by temperature, or by deadline. It doesn't matter how you prioritize things. It just matters that you find a way that works for you. Some important notes about making priorities work for you include asking yourself, what do I feel good about accomplishing today? And then setting those goals and priorities for the day, right? When doing this, it is always useful to check your schedule and see what is pressing and what needs to be done, and to consider, what do I want or need to accomplish? What do I need to get done? Then make a to-do list for that day and work towards achieving it. However, you do need to be flexible. Priorities will change throughout the day. Maybe you will get an email about a change in a deadline, so you need to adjust. Maybe you get a message from a friend or a family member needing your help, or maybe you are just not feeling well. Things can come up during the course of a day, and you will need to adjust your plans accordingly. Another important aspect of prioritizing is celebrating success. At the end of the day, you should focus on what you have accomplished and not what still needs to be done. Now that we've discussed priorities, I want to take a few minutes to discuss time management. Time management refers to the wise use of time, and it includes three different components: planning, scheduling, and doing. So planning involves knowing what you need to do. Scheduling involves knowing when you are going to do it. And doing it involves following through and actually completing your tasks. For example, you need to know what you have to do for an assignment. You need to schedule when you're going to do each of the different components of that assignment, and then you actually need to do them. People with ADHD often have a love-hate relationship with time. On one hand, it can feel like you have an endless amount of time to do things, but on the other, you can feel stressed and overwhelmed when it feels like time is running out. Time management can be particularly difficult for those with attentional concerns for a number of different reasons. The first can include difficulties with time estimation, or thinking that things take way less time than they actually do. Examples can include thinking an assignment will only take an hour, but it actually ends up taking several, or thinking it will only take you 20 minutes to get to the university, but it actually ends up taking you 45. You can also underestimate the amount of time that it takes to do household tasks such as cleaning or grocery shopping. This is problematic because chronic difficulties with time estimation often make people late. It also draws time from other areas in your life. If you thought an assignment was going to take you 1 hour, but it ends up taking you 5, then you have less time to devote to household tasks, self-care, or social obligations, which can result in the need to cancel plans last minute. So let's go over a quick example. Say you have a specialist appointment at a location that you have never been to before. The appointment is at 2:30, and according to GPS, it will take you approximately 30 minutes to get to that appointment. So what time do you need to leave your house at? Should you leave at 2 o'clock or should you leave a little earlier? What things do you need to consider before deciding what time to leave? Perhaps it's rush hour, or is there any construction? Is it the middle of an Alberta winter and do you need to defrost your car? Is there parking available at the location you're going to? And do you need time to find parking and then pay for it? Will you need to park somewhere else and then walk a distance to the building that you need to be at? Let's think of the U of A campus, for example, and the distance that you actually need to travel from your parking spot to wherever you need to be on campus. If you're not driving, then how will you get there? Are you taking transit? Are you getting a ride? Are you walking? Do you need to consider the timelines of other people when planning when to be there? And once you do get there, do you know where the specific location that you need to be is, right? Let's again consider the U of A campus and how overwhelming it can be on your first visit when you're looking for a specific room in a specific building. All of these things can take up a lot of time and should be included in your time estimation. Another thing that needs to be considered when discussing time management is time suckers. So these are things that unexpectedly suck up your time. They are things that you end up spending much more time on than originally expected. So an excellent example of a time sucker can include your cell phone or really any other type of distraction. For example, you go to check the time on your phone while you're studying for an exam, but then you notice that you have a text message. So you respond to that message. And then once you respond to that message, you notice, oh, I have an Instagram notification. So you go and check that message. And then the next thing you know, you've been scrolling on Instagram for 20 minutes and you can't recall the time, right? This relates to our priorities and balancing what is stimulating and interesting, such as social media or our cell phones, versus what is pressing and needs to be done, such as studying for that exam. A lack of organization can also be considered a time sucker. When things we need are misplaced, so example, notes from class that you need to study from, and we end up spending an unexpected amount of time searching for or retrieving these items, it can cut into the time we have available to do required tasks. So if you have an hour to study for an exam before your next class starts, but you can't find your notes and you spend 30 minutes looking for them, it cuts your available study time in half. Planners and organizers can greatly assist with both time management and prioritizing, but in order for that to happen, your planner needs to be useful. Useful planners are portable, as in you can take them to school or work with you. They must offer secure storage, so they shouldn't be easily lost or they could be backed up. They must be easy for you to use, and most importantly, they must be easily accessible and visible. Having all your assignment dates in your organizer will not do you any good unless you open it up and look at those due dates. The first guideline to be wary of is using multiple planners, right? It can be very tempting to use separate planners for school and the rest of your life. But if you are juggling different planners, appointments and due dates can often be missed. It is recommended that you just use one planner so everything's all in one place. The second thing is that you need to use the planner for it to work. This takes time and effort and relates to the planning and scheduling aspects of time management. You need to add items to your planner and refer to it and update it frequently for it to work for you. Lastly, consider the type of planner that you use. You can have electronic planners, so an example could be your cell phone, or you can have paper planners, so these portable day timers. Or you can have large wall planners that are posted on the wall in your workspace. You can have planners that have a day view or a week view or a month view. You can have planners that have extra space for notes or planners that just show due dates, right? It is important to find a planner that works for you. What works for me or another person might not be the best fit for you. So before we wrap up, I want to invite you to do a quick activity with me. let's assess your current planner, and I will assess mine as I go along too. So I'm currently using my cell phone calendar as my planner. That's what works for me. So in terms of portability, my phone is extremely portable. I take it everywhere I go, and I'm not likely to forget it somewhere. Smaller paper day timers are easily portable, but they're also pretty easily forgotten because we don't use them as much as things like our phone. On the other hand, wall calendars are not portable at all because they're stuck up and tacked to a wall. For secure storage, my phone has very secure storage. I'm unlikely to lose it. But if I do, it's also backed up in my iCloud. So if something happens to my phone, I'm not going to lose all of my stored information, all of my to-do lists, all of my schedules. On the other hand, if a paper planner is lost, so is all of the information in it. It's not backed up anywhere. Wall planners are also pretty unlikely to be lost because they're hung up on a wall, right? You don't take them with you, you leave them in one spot. So it's unlikely that you'll lose them or lose any of the information on them. In terms of visibility, my phone, not the best for my planner. I have to click on the calendar app and open it up to see what I have scheduled. So the same applies to the portable paper planners. You need to open them to see them. Wall calendars, however, they're out in the open and they're highly visible. In fact, it's pretty hard to ignore them when they're posted to your wall. In terms of space, my phone technically has lots of storage space, but the app that I use doesn't really allow me to add notes or to-do lists inside of the planner. This makes it a little harder to keep track of longer-term projects. Paper planners, on the other hand, often come in a variety of ways, and you can get ones that have additional space for notes. Wall calendars can also have this feature, but you need to look for a planner that has these options if you need them. When I was doing my undergraduate degree, I actually used a paper planner because I found it had more space to accommodate all of the individual coursework and assignments that I had to do. In terms of being easily updated, electronic calendars are very easy to update. You can delete or reschedule appointments very easily without erasing or crossing things out. Paper and wall planners, on the other hand, are a little more difficult to update. Moving things around in these type of planners can be a little messy, right? And for the last one, can your planner be easily synced with other areas of your life and with other people in your life? So when I'm at work, I have a specific scheduling program that's used by our office, but it's very easy to sync with my current calendar. Electronic planners also allow you to send invites to other people to sync your schedules. Wall planners allow you to view multiple people's schedules at the same time. So if you have kids or a spouse or a roommate and you need to coordinate these schedules, that might be useful. Paper calendars often do not allow for this feature of syncing with other schedules. Okay. So it's important to consider all these different aspects of having and using a planner so that you can use one that works best for you and your specific circumstances. If you don't currently use a planner, you should get one today. So thank you for viewing this webinar on prioritizing time management and organizers. Listed on this last slide here is a link to a survey for your feedback. We would greatly appreciate any feedback you have about this webinar in particular and about the video format of this presentation in general. CCS is always looking for new ways to meet student needs, and we value your thoughts and opinions on the best ways to go about doing that. So thank you again for joining me for this webinar.